There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, the Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
The great experience of life is the quest of every heart for a measure of happiness and security. Not so much the mysteries of the world of science or the subtleties of politics, but the hopes and the blessings and the disappointments that develop out of everyday human relationships. These form the chief interest of human life. Now, the attempt to adjust a dispute through the friendly intervention of impartial persons is called mediation. And today we welcome as our mediators three key personalities in American life. An engaging figure of the courtroom, as attorney for the defense, as prosecutor of the pleas, as a judge of the Supreme Court of his native state of New Jersey, Honorable William A. Wachenfeld. An educator, widely known for his awakening of interest in all forms of creative expression and helpful knowledge, Dr. Paul Dawson Eddy. And America's most distinguished clergyman, Dr. Harry Emerson Fosdick. Now, there is an old saying that goes something like this: a man is as old as he feels. A woman as old as she looks. Now, does that make good sense, or are there certain circumstances, in the case of the woman anyway, where there's more to think about than meets the eye? Suppose we have this complainant tell you what this difference of opinion is all about.
Members of the board, I find myself involved in a rather delicate situation which I've come here to have settled. I recently introduced my friend here to a man, but we had no idea of what might develop. There has now developed such a complete difference of opinion between us that we've come here to have it settled.
And what is this all about?
Well, don't you think that it is the obligation of a girl under certain circumstances to tell the truth about herself, particularly her age? When I introduced these people, I had no idea as to what would happen. But I understand that they are very much interested in each other and have been seeing each other regularly. And there are things about it which trouble me.
And would you mind telling us why you should be troubled?
At the time I introduced them, I had no idea that the relationship would develop as it has. But I realize now how serious it is. The young man is completely serious, and for some reason my friend sees no reason to tell the truth. Although this has been going on for months, she has deceived him about her age. The man is considerably younger than she is, and he is under the impression that she is about 10 years younger than she really is.
And you say that there has been some unpleasantness?
Yes, I've known the man for years. He is a friend of the family. I introduced them. I feel responsible. I've discussed this question with my friend, and she tells me that she sees no reason whatever to tell her age, even though the man is quite serious.
Well, I think that's quite clear. Now, suppose we hear from the respondent.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board, I'd like to say that the only thing that disturbs me in all of this is that my friend feels embarrassed in any way. But I've come here because, as a matter of principle, I feel very strongly on this issue, and I, too, would just as soon have it settled.
Well, we'd like to ask you this. Do you think that it's perfectly all right for you to conceal your age?
I certainly do.
In view of the fact that you're, as we understand it, 10 years older than this man.
Well, I think that my friend and many other people place much too much stress on the question of calendar age. Obviously, people mature differently at the same age level. If a person is attracted to me on the basis of whatever attributes I may have, that's one thing. But if he's informed of my calendar age and judges me on that one fact, that's another. If I have the qualities, physically, mentally, emotionally, to appeal to a man, and if we're substantially compatible, What purpose would be served in making a point of when I was born? Wouldn't I still be the same person? Wouldn't the only change be in the mind of the other person?
Well, if we may divert for just a moment, I think the board understands your point of view, but suppose we deal for just a moment with the concern of your friend because she introduced you and she feels involved.
I don't see that at all. People are always introducing people to each other, and their responsibility shouldn't extend beyond that. After all, this man and I are both mature people, and if he finds my company enjoyable, and if he wants to continue seeing me, well then, why should I bring in what to me is a completely extraneous issue?
Well, if the board should think that it's all right to deceive a man who is serious, and when it doesn't involve a year or 2 or even 5 years, but considerably more, I don't care what she does, but I think she's fooling herself. In a marriage, the truth cannot be concealed. There are many ways in which it comes out, and there are also many telltale signs. But this is none of my affair. I simply feel that under the circumstances, she owes it to this man to tell him the truth, since he has jumped to a conclusion which I believe is way out of line.
Mr. Alexander, I've tried to make it clear that whatever I appear to be, and whatever this man thinks I am, that's what I am. Regardless of what my friend says, I've never lied to this man or anyone else about my age. I just don't see any obligation to reveal it.
Well, would you mind if we asked you this question? What do you do when someone actually asks your age?
Either I make some facetious remark, or I frankly say that I don't feel it's necessary to reveal it. And I don't, for the reasons I've given.
Well, I feel very strongly. First, she has no right to impose on another person who trusts her. Second, I feel that she is under a definite obligation to me since I introduced them.
We want to ask one more question, if we may, before putting this in the hands of the mediators. Suppose the question was raised about children. What about the question of children?
Well, that hasn't been brought up. But if it were, either in this instance or in any other, I'd be perfectly frank in saying that I don't expect to have any children, and then he could make his own decision on that basis.
But you would not volunteer your age?
No, definitely not. I feel that that's immaterial, and I would still be the same person, and I think that I should be judged on what I seem to be, on whatever qualities I have, and that my calendar age is of no consequence whatsoever.
Dr. Fosdick?
Well, this is a familiar attitude for women to take, that they don't reveal just how old they are. Madame de Berry, in the trial before she was guillotined, insisted that she was 42 when she was really 50. And we all of us are familiar with that female attitude, so that for the most part we take it as a matter of course. And I'm afraid, however, that this young woman is being very unrealistic about certain practical aspects of the matter. Because if this affair goes through and marriage comes, her husband is going to find out her exact age. It may be that he will want children and discover that it's too late. He may be that he'll want to take a trip with her and get a passport, and he'll have to get the woman's birth certificate. It may be that she will go to a hospital because of illness, and they'll insist on exact statistics, and they have official ways of finding it out. There are dozens of ways in which inevitably, if you marry this man, he's going to know your exact age. And if that comes to him as a shock, and if he has reason to think that you unfairly concealed it before marriage, it may have a more disastrous effect than anything would happen now if you took the matter lightly and jovially let him know what the situation actually is.
Well, I'm not trying to have this man believe that I'm any age other than what I am. He can think whatever he wants, but I just don't want to tell him what it is. And also, I don't want it to be of any importance to anyone. It shouldn't matter what age I am. As far as the children are concerned, as I said, I would state that there are to be no children, and if he wants to go along on that basis, all right. But my point is that I don't think that calendar age is of any importance.
Well, here is the thing. If you took the matter lightly now and acquainted him with the facts so that he could never charge you with deceit, I don't believe it would make a bit of difference in his attitude toward you. But if you conceal your age and it comes as a shock after marriage, then you may be in trouble. So I'm thinking of it purely as a practical matter. I'm afraid that you're escaping a difficulty now only to run into a possible disaster afterward.
May I inject myself here? I would like to say that I think there is deceit in the sense that the young man has jumped to a conclusion which he has no way of finding out about at this point.
Judge
Except
Walkenfeld?
Well, I don't feel that way about it. This respondent apparently is catering to the adage that a woman is as young as she looks, and in that respect she's going to find a vast amount of support. Surely this boy must be old enough to know that if he really wants to find out her age, he can do it from a dozen and different ways. He can ask her point blank and say, I will take no facetious answer for my answer. I want a definite response. But if this lady has the wisdom of maturity and the appearance of youth, it's quite an accomplishment. Why should she, of her own volition, deprecate it just because others don't have that ability to do it? As far as the complaining witness is concerned, who introduced her, she should have no qualms of conscience about it. She never guaranteed anybody's age, and nature has treated us all differently. Some of us look older than we are, some of us look younger than we are. This man is probably so infatuated with her or in love with her that he doesn't care what her actual age is, and he is the one who is going to consummate this marriage.
Of course, may I say that I do feel the responsibility, having introduced them and not having myself mentioned anything about age at the time, since, as I've said before, there seemed very little reason for it, not knowing that it would develop and go as far as it has.
Well, as I've said before, if the man really wanted to find out how old she was, if his affection depended upon that knowledge and that information, he has many ways of finding it out, but apparently he's satisfied with his lot in life.
Dr. Fosdick?
Yes, but we've had, what affects me is that we've had testimony that he already has jumped to conclusions that are untrue about it. And so that when he does find out her age after marriage, let us say, it's going to be a shock.
Well, Dr. Fosdick, do you take the position that the fact that you're silent about a thing doesn't mean that you're not being dishonest? In other words, do you feel there's an obligation to take a constructive attitude, and because a person believes a certain thing, there's no reason why you should let them go on in their illusion when you can tell them the truth?
Yes, I don't think she's under obligation just to go around telling her age. It isn't that. I'm thoroughly in sympathy with her. But I'm just talking about the practical realities of this case. I want this marriage, if it comes off, to be a success.
And you think it's to her interest to tell her age?
I think it's to her interest to let him, put him in a position where he's not going to be shocked by discovering her age afterwards, yes.
I think a person of maturity, a man of maturity, would not be bothered very much by the difference of a number of years of age. And if he were bothered, then it would disturb him before marriage. If he were the kind of person who had enough sense to realize that, as I said before, people do mature differently, and the calendar age does not tell you how old you are physically or mentally or in many other ways. Well, if he's mature enough to take that into consideration, then even if he found out after marriage what the true age was, it wouldn't matter.
May I ask this question of the complainant? When you introduced these people, I understand that you said it was a social occasion. You had no idea, did you, that this was going to end up seriously, did you? This was just a casual relationship, wasn't it?
Yes, as far as I was concerned, it was.
And so when it developed in a serious way, you came to the conclusion that there should be honesty on her part, and you discussed it with her, and you feel that she's under obligation to tell the truth?
I do.
Dr. Eddy?
Well, just to clear up the first point, I agree with the judge that the young lady who introduced the couple has no moral or other obligation or responsibility.
Well, let's settle that right now. You believe that, Judge Walkenfeld?
Definitely.
Dr. Fosdick?
Yes, thoroughly.
Well, then on that point, the board has unanimously agreed that you've done your duty by talking to the young lady about it, mentioning that in your opinion she should do it, and now that you've done that, there's no further responsibility.
And I think we're overlooking one fact, that we're not dealing with an adolescent boy who's carried away with an infatuation. He doesn't need to be protected. There are many things in life of mutual companionship and enrichment that can come out of a relationship where they both are mutually committed to this union, if it comes about, so that as far as deceit, if he had asked her age and she had misquoted the age or led him to believe something else, that would be deceit. But she hasn't deceived him. She hasn't posed.
Well, you mean if someone doesn't ask you, then there's no obligation to tell the truth?
Not unless it's an issue. There's always an obligation to tell the truth, of course.
Well, why doesn't that obligation exist here?
Well, because there's no interest on the part of the man. He can look at her and he can decide whether she is the one whom he wishes to spend his life with, and there apparently is sufficient mutuality to ensure a companionship and a life of great enrichment.
Well, Judge
As far as the
Walkenfeld-
children are concerned, if they both desired children, there are many, many wonderful children who could be adopted and raised by two fine young people along that line.
I merely wanted to ask Judge Walkenfeld, Dr. Eddy, whether it wouldn't be easily possible, if the man were really interested to find out her age, to go to the public records.
The public records are there, and the public records have her complete name, her place of birth, and her age. If he's interested in finding out, he can find it out from a dozen different agencies.
Yes, why should we put into his mind on these assumptions that this is something that makes a difference to him?
Well,
Now, I think Dr. Fosdick is right, that there's an element of risk of if he's immature and he wakes up someday and finds out that well, there is this difference in our age, which as they get older may grow in its influence in the relationship.
Well, isn't that a rather important thing? Do you think that you can just, and I'm only asking this question to explore all aspects of the picture, I'm completely neutral here as the moderator and have no interest either side other than to find truth. But we'd like to ask you this question, raised by Dr. Fosdick. Can you merely whitewash, if I may use that term, or throw out the window the fact that it is a physiological fact that people do grow older and do show signs of that? Now, when this man marries this young woman, assuming that he does, and it looks like that, that's what the issue is about, and he finds certain developments, we won't go into the legal question as to misrepresentation, but isn't he likely to be disillusioned? And wouldn't it be to the interests of the young woman, in accordance with Dr. Fosdick's suggestion, to relieve that situation by being frank enough to say, this is my age, and then if he doesn't love her enough to marry her, even if she's 62, then there's no marriage.
Well, Mr. Alexander, if we do not need to go into the legal aspect, I don't think anybody on this panel is qualified to go into the physiological aspect.
May I say that from the physiological point of view, I believe that there are several reasons why it is preferable that the woman be older than the man. Besides which, people...
Well, I wouldn't know what those are, but I don't think that involved in this case.
But that is the question right now at hand, the physiological aspect, I believe, Mr. Alexander.
Yes,
Isn't that the point
Dr.
you're
Eddy,
stressing
why
now?
do you object to going into the physiological aspect? The reason I don't want to go into the legal aspect is because it's not in accordance with the policy of this program, a public policy to give legal advice through this means. Now, that's why I don't want to go into the legal action. Now, why don't you want to go into the physiological?
Simply because there's no physician here, and there's such variations in individual physical growth and development, as well as in mental and emotional.
Well, do you
I don't think we're qualified to say that this man is likely to have a shock or to make a discovery that'll be disillusioning and wreck the marriage or anything else. We can't make those assumptions.
Well, Dr. Eddy, do you mean to say that you have to be a physician to know that at a certain age in life, whether a person is a man or a woman, there are certain changes glandularly,
that's right,
epidermically?
Yes, that's right. But
you don't have to be a
people
physician.
go on living after those changes have taken place in companionship and in enrichment and fulfillment.
So your point is that if the man is willing to accept these compensations, he won't care what she looks like otherwise.
She's not only the way she looks tonight, I think she'll be all right for a long time to come.
I just want.
We're 25, I believe it.
I just wanted
feel
to
even
inject
younger than
something
that.
which I thought we might have forgotten to say, in that convention decrees that a man be older than a woman, or so it is in our society, I believe, and I think that many of us are conventional.
Maybe that generally is true,
I
but
don't
there is
think it-
many a happy marriage in which the woman is older than the man and very successful and very much content.
May I
And
add
some
to
men
that?
need an older woman to help them grow up.
May I just add to that and say that psychologists and others who have made a study of marriage have found that the chances for a marriage being happy are greater when the wife is older than the husband, for many reasons.
Dr. Fosdick, if you have nothing further to say, I suppose we can sum up. It's only...
As I say, I have no desire to put pressure on her to tell her age for legal reasons or for moral reasons. I'm simply hoping that if she takes that calculated risk, it won't boomerang.
So do we.
She's done very well up to now.
Well, I think that it's only through the exchange of opinion that we find truth. And I want it distinctly understood, Dr. Eddy and gentlemen, that any of these questions are intended to stimulate interest in all aspects of the picture so that we can find truth. It's held by Dr. Fosdick that it isn't a very practical thing in the long run to withhold one's age, for the reason that sooner or later, after marriage, it's reasonably sure to be found out. The majority of the board is of the opinion that if the young woman does not actually falsify, which she alleges she has not done and will not do, and since the man, if actually that interested, can easily find out her age, a birth record is a public record, if the man is willing to accept this young woman for whatever she appears to be, the majority of the board, and I think Dr. Fosdick too, feels that there's nothing they object to or is particularly wrong.
Apparently
Now,
she
as
does.
to the question of the involvement of the other young woman, the one who raised the question here, it's agreed that whatever responsibility may exist is certainly not hers, that having talked it over with the respondent, she's under no further obligation to anyone.
They should renew their friendship.
Yes, well, I'm sure that they will. As we express our thanks to our mediators and bring this session of the Court of Human Relations to a close, I think of the urgent need for attitudes of harmony and cooperative effort in our everyday living. And Edwin Markham's words, "The crest and crowning of all good, life's final star, is brotherhood."